Hi everyone, today we're looking at the second part of measuring crime. So last lesson you looked at official statistics, and this lesson we're going to look at some of the other sources of data on crime that sociologists use. We're going to evaluate these methods, so what's good and bad about them. So for the starter activity, if you could please pause the video and just come up with what are the problems of using official statistics to measure crime. And I've put that picture of the iceberg there because hopefully that will jog your memory as to one of the main problems of using official statistics. So if you can't remember, flick back to your notes from last lesson because that will help you. Hopefully you've had time to do that, and hopefully that iceberg jogged your memory and made you think about the dark figure of crime. So all of that ice that's underneath the surface of the water represents all of those crimes that never make it to the official statistics, either because they're not detected, reported or recorded. So there are other problems with some of the other methods used, so we're going to be looking at those alternative measurements of crime. The first one we're going to look at is victim surveys. So if you could put that as a heading in your notes and just jot down this information. So victim surveys are what it says, a survey sent out to people to ask them what crimes they have been a victim of. And the crime survey for England and Wales is an example of a victim survey that is carried out annually, so once a year. The sample size is 35,000 people across England and Wales aged over 16, so it's quite a large sample, and it's a representative sample, so they try to make sure that the sample is representative of equal numbers of men and women, proportionate numbers of different ethnic backgrounds, and so on and so forth. The findings of the BCS show that only 4 in 10 crimes are reported to the police, so that tells us that around 60% of crimes that are occurring are going unreported. So what I would like you to do, once you've jotted down that information, is to draw a T-chart in your books of strengths and weaknesses. So on the left-hand side, I want you to tell me what are some of the strengths of victim surveys, and on the right-hand side, what are some of the weaknesses. So maybe pause the video here, have a go at doing it yourself, and then we will discuss. So some of the strengths, obviously you can talk about the sample size, you can talk about the fact that it's across England and Wales, you can talk about the fact it is representative, and you can also say that it helps to uncover the dark figure of crime because it's telling us about all of those crimes that are not appearing in the official statistics. In terms of the weaknesses, you can talk about how people's memories may deceive them, so they might remember a crime differently to how it actually occurred. You can talk about how some people might exaggerate the crime. In particular, when victims are recalling, who the perpetrator of a crime is, often they are likely to forget exactly the characteristics. So it may lead to us thinking that crimes are committed by a certain group more than is in fact the reality. So that can be a problem because obviously it's not giving us a valid picture of who is committing crimes. The next way to analyse crime is to look at self-report studies. So again, put that as a subheading and just jot down these notes. So a self-report study asks people to reveal what crimes they have committed in a time period. So it might be in the last year, what crimes have you committed? The study is anonymous, but it does ask their age, their gender and rough location. So not their postcode, because obviously you could probably maybe figure out who it was, particularly in remote postcodes, but it does ask general area. So think about what are some of the strengths and weaknesses of this type of survey. So pause the video here and come up with, do a T-chart again, exactly like what we did before, strengths and weaknesses of a self-report study, and then we'll go through it. So with the strengths of a self-report study, we can obviously say, again, it's going to reveal that dark figure of crime, because remember, not every crime is detected or witnessed, not all crimes have a victim, so there's lots of crimes that occur that we might not even know about, so that helps to deal with that aspect. We can also say it's good because it's anonymous, so it means that people are more likely to tell the truth, meaning that the research is going to be valid because it's going to be more accurate. In terms of problems, though, we can say even if it is anonymous, some people are going to be inherently suspicious, and they're probably still going to lie to some extent. They might tell the truth about perhaps minor crimes like not wearing the seatbelt or minor crimes like shoplifting. But if it was a serious crime such as murder, rape, they're probably going to still lie about those because they are such serious crimes. We can also say that the time period is a problem as well. If the survey asks you to recall all the crimes you've committed in the last year, it's unlikely you're going to remember exactly how many times you've committed a particular offence and exactly when you did it. You may remember obviously serious crimes, so perhaps if somebody committed murder, they'd probably remember that quite distinctly. But again, the example perhaps of not wearing a seatbelt, if somebody does that multiple times, it's unlikely they're going to remember the amount of times they did that, or the amount of times that they've perhaps committed speeding offences, etc. So it may not still be completely accurate. So what I'd like you to do now is pause the video and read the statements A to M on the left-hand side. I'd like you to decide, firstly, are they a strength or a weakness? And then, are they a strength or a weakness of official statistics, self-report studies, or victim surveys? So I've done the first two for you so you can see what I'm talking about. So the first one says that it has a large sample size of 35,000 households in England and Wales. So we know that that's a strength of victim surveys. For B, the police may treat some groups differently. For example, they may let women off with some crimes, such as not wearing a seatbelt. We can put that in weakness of official statistics, because if the police don't record some crimes because they treat people differently, perhaps they're more lenient with certain groups, that's definitely a weakness, because it's never going to appear in the official statistics if the police don't record the crime. So have a go at doing all of those. Some of them are quite obvious, some of them are a bit tricky. Once you've done, change the slide because the answers are on the next slide. Okay, so here are all the answers. Just double check that you've got them correctly and maybe discuss the ones that you got incorrect. I've put D for 2 of them, so provides quantitative data. Sorry, I've put it for 3 of them because all of these surveys provide some sort of quantitative data. So quantitative, remember, means numerical data, so you can draw percentages and numbers from them. Okay, next, put the subheading, what do different theories say about measuring crime? So I want you just to talk to your partner about the 3 boxes on the right hand side. Identify which sociological theory each explanation is linked to. So read them and decide what theory you think it is. Then think about what similarities are there between the Marxist and feminist view on official statistics. And you might also want to think about what a functionalist might say, because the functionalist perspective is not one of these 3. So hopefully you've unpaused the video now. Let's go through the answers. So the first one, these sociologists argue official statistics under-record incidents of violence against women, including domestic and sexual violence. This is due to the patriarchal nature of society. Hopefully just that word patriarchy or patriarchal meant that you realised it was feminism. So make sure that you write this down, please, in your book so that you've got what each theory says about measuring crime. The second one, these sociologists argue that crime is a social construction, as it depends on the time and place of the act as to whether it is considered criminal or not. It also depends on whether the act is witnessed, reported and recorded. Therefore, crime statistics are not that useful in understanding crime. So this one is known as interactionism. So some of us may or may not have heard of this. We did do it right at the start of last year, but our memories may be a bit rusty. But interactionism is all about anything to do with something being a social construct, and labelling theory also comes under interactionism. So this is interactionism because we're talking about crime being a social construction, about us labelling something as criminal or not, depending on what the actual act is and where it's occurred. And then the last one, these sociologists argue official statistics are inaccurate as they overrepresent working class crime and underrepresent middle class crime. This is because the bourgeoisie are in charge of defining crime and deciding what crimes are more serious. This one is quite clearly Marxism. So Marxists say that working class crimes like robberies, street offences, fights, that sort of thing, they are over-recorded. The police will target those kinds of crimes more, and they don't target crimes like fraud or embezzlement, more middle-class crimes that perhaps they're harder to detect because obviously they're less visible. You can't just see fraud happening on the street necessarily. But obviously we can also say from a Marxist perspective that the reason why the police don't target those crimes is because they are crimes that are more likely to be carried out by the bourgeoisie. And so the bourgeoisie use their power to make the police focus more on working class crimes. So a 12-mark answer that could link to this is discuss how far sociologists would agree that official statistics are the best way to examine how much crime occurs in the UK. So how you would structure this, obviously we know that 12-mark questions are a for and against and a conclusion. So paragraph 1 would be a for, official statistics are the best measurement of crime. And then paragraph 2, they're not the best measurement of crime, something else is. So it might be that you talk about victim surveys or self-report studies. Then you would talk about which argument is strongest and why. So I want you just to mind map what are the potential arguments for and against this question, what key terms might you include, and what theories might be included. So can you include feminism, Marxism, or interactionism in your answer? So pause the video here, have a go at mind mapping what you would say, and then we'll go through a plan. So our plan, on the left-hand side, I've got the first argument. So official statistics are the best way to measure crime. So things you could talk about. This is not all of the things you could talk about. This is just some suggestions. So you could say that it provides quantitative data, making it easier to make comparisons over time. So it's good because we can see the trends. Has crime gone up? Has it gone down? And it's reliable because the data is collected exactly the same way each time, meaning that we can make those direct comparisons. And it's also large scale. So the Office of National Statistics is a website that publishes all of these statistics, and they're based on police recorded data. So it's likely that they're representative as they include all of the country. And also functionalists see this as a good way to measure crime because they think we should study society in a very scientific way, that we should use statistics and scientific methods to be able to uncover what the trends and patterns are. On the other hand, you could say official statistics are flawed because they don't include that dark figure of crime, all of those unknown crimes that go on that don't appear in the official statistics. So they might not get reported by the police or it might not be reported to the police by the public, or it might not be recorded by the police once they hear about a crime. And remember, Marxists would say that working class crime like robbery is overrepresented. So obviously it's not going to be the best measurement of crime because it's not accurate if it's really focusing only on one type of crime. And feminists would also say that crimes against women like rape, domestic violence are underreported by victims. So they might not be that apparent in official statistics as well. And also, I haven't put it on the slide here, but you should also add in that perhaps victim surveys or self-report studies are a better way to examine how much crime occurs in the UK. And you want to explain why those methods might be better than official statistics. So in your conclusion, you want to say what argument is strongest and why. So you might say something like official statistics are useful for spotting trends, but they're not the full picture, and therefore looking at victim surveys, self-report studies and official statistics altogether might be a better way to examine how much crime occurs. Or you can be very fixed on one side. You could say that official statistics are very flawed and actually it's better to look at simply victim surveys. So it's up to you what you put in your conclusion. It's really down to you and your opinion, as long as you justify why you have made that argument. So if you're doing this from home, please make sure that you upload your work to Show My Homework, or you email it to me. And if you're in lesson, I hope you had a good lesson today. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye.